Hey, what's going on? This is the OG Kickoff, a Double Down and Next Round media production. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, you are back just in time to recap round one of the NFL draft. Before we get started with that, your boy beefed up. You were not on a bachelor party in Wyoming. You were with dudes very close to Wyoming, but neither of those things were correct, and I had two factual mistakes in the lead last pod.
Yes, I was on a family trip in Utah, and the only reason that matters is because both my stepbrother and my stepdad are very married, like the most married people. And so I went to go review the pod when John sent it over, and I was like, hold on, I'm on a bachelor trip in Wyoming? This is news to me.
To be fair, you definitely said Wyoming at some point. The bachelor party thing I might have just mixed up in my head because I knew you were going with dudes. So that was my thought process with that. Wyoming, Utah. Look, I love Utah. You know I love Utah. Love Zion. Basically the same thing. Come on. Who are we kidding?
Like, this is like when women say, like, what do you guys talk? You guys have been friends for 20 years. What do you talk about? This is a great example of dude communication. That was literally a 50-50 miscom. But hey, we're here to talk ball. So
we got the gist of it. First round is in the books. Diego Pavia, I'm just going to assume, was livid that he wasn't the first overall pick and that Fernando Mendoza got yet another honor. Yeah, we had a what's the right way to say this? Well, it was a quiet first round for the SEC because the SEC, for the first time since 2015, did not have the most first-round picks. Only 7 SEC players came off the board. The Big Ten takes that title this year with 10. Kind of foreshadowed that. First time the SEC has not had a top 5 pick since 2018. The SEC is dead, right?
Just even more evidence, man. The SEC is dead. They're also broke, and we'll foreshadow that with the massive extension that Kalen DeBoer has been given.
Yes.
But this is it for us.
Yes. Yeah, we do have a great pod coming up. We have some thoughts on Kalen DeBoer that we will get to, the new contract. And we have also a different kind of guest that we've had on with San Diego State Associate GM Sam Popper. Really interesting perspective in this new era of college football. And then we're going to close with an email that has a new SEC tiebreaker simulator. But Will, yeah, so the most noteworthy thing that happened from, in my opinion, like in the entire first round, was Ty Simpson going to the Rams at 13 overall. That was the moment of the draft. Like, couldn't have gone to a better place. Dan Orlovsky somewhere was just fist pumping both hands. I think he did so on McAfee on their stream during the draft. And if you could have just dropped him in a spot, like, to me, that's where it is. I didn't want him playing this upcoming season. And when you are literally rolling out the reigning MVP, you don't have to play Ty Simpson like all those other first round quarterbacks. So my God, he might have just fallen into the perfect situation to have Sean McVay go up there and get him.
Connor, I often joke about people who don't watch college football, who start to care about players at the draft. Have an all-time one of those takes for years. So I was searching for on my phone. One of my buddies sent this in a group chat. Ty Simpson couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe multiple years. Me, when I have no idea how the Alabama quarterback situation has worked ever. Me, when I just start saying bleep. I love that fit for Ty Simpson. I think that's honestly a great pick for them. The team that famously took a flyer on Stetson Bennett, a team that I think really could almost make anyone work at the QB position, and a guy who is a great decision maker, has an NFL arm, can do things on schedule. That's what the offense is about, right? I mean, Jared Goff was a guy that could not function off schedule at the NFL level, and I think even if Ty Simpson doesn't improve there, shows some of that weakness we saw against Oklahoma the first time around. McVay's got the right system for it. It's not a system where that type of weakness gets exposed.
Yeah, I thought that if the Rams were going to end up with him, it was going to be certainly much later than that, and like maybe a trade back situation or something like that. And yeah, for him to go at 13 to that spot, you're just thinking, man, this is all of a sudden like this is now when we'll potentially have the ability to like dunk on pre-draft takes. And for what it's worth, I wouldn't have been comfortable with him as a first round pick unless he went to the right situation. I kept saying the Cardinals thing over and over. Would have just been all sorts of nightmarish. And instead the Cardinals end up at, well, I shouldn't say instead, but they do end up getting at the 3rd overall pick, Jeremiah Love, who
they did something much dumber than that.
Don't exactly, it doesn't feel like they have the offensive line to make that thing go, but Jeremiah Love is awesome, and he's gonna be fun to watch, and you have a cool player, much like the Giants did with Saquon Barkley, so that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of fits, I realize we actually haven't talked about this yet, but what do you think about Mendoza to the Raiders?
We really haven't talked about that, have we? Love that he's throwing the ball to Brock Bowers. Absolutely love it. I love the Kubiak fit. I think he's going to make a lot of sense with what they're trying to do offensively. I'm hopeful that we get to see a better version of Ashton Genty because last year was just 2 yards and not even a cloud of dust. It was just a bummer watching what he's doing with Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll. So, like, I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a really, really good NFL player. I do. Like, do I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame level guy who wins multiple Super Bowls, like at a essentially like a Ben Roethlisberger level? I probably don't think he's quite that good, but I do think that he changes the entire trajectory of the franchise. Like I think he's definitely capable of being that type of player for them. It is fascinating. Like people when they made the Cousins move, people were like, "Oh yeah, this means he doesn't have to play his first year." Like, buddy, what world are you living in? He's the first overall pick. He's playing. He's playing. Kirk Cousins will play like the first 2 or 3 games, and then the second he has like 8 consecutive incompletions, he's out because that's the way that works. But
I think those
I
guys are
like
going to
it.
have like the white version of the handshake from Sorry to Bother You, where they walk in, they both have like the biggest smile ever. Hey, great to meet you, man. Good to see you. Hey, great to show you around. Great to be the franchise quarterback. I wish I could see the meeting of those two quarterbacks.
Very, very similar breed of human for sure. I love that Mendoza had the updated LinkedIn profile. He's employed now. Good for him. Happy that he was able to find some work. Yeah, so those were the only two quarterbacks who came off the board. Contrary to what we were hearing, Carson Beck did not end up being a first round pick. Why did that become anything? That was
Joke's on you if you listen to it, because I didn't.
golly. So we did have, like I said, no top five player from the SEC, but we did have Mansour Lane going to the Chiefs at 6.
Top
And
six
people,
player, spin zone.
wait, say that again.
Top six player, spin zone.
Right? Yeah, basically, it's basically the same thing. Yeah, I thought like the Chiefs moving up from 9 to 6 and getting a guy that they probably could have gotten at 9 was interesting. I was like, oh, I didn't expect them to do that, but like Mansour Lane's awesome. I mean that uh, lowest completion percentage among all corners, like no touchdowns allowed, 11 PBUs they brought up. Like I always love bringing up the 31.3 NFL quarterback rating when targeted, which if you know that quarterbacks who spike the football every time, you get a 39.6 quarterback rating. Confirmed good player. Saban absolutely loved him too, which is kind of the ultimate stamp of approval with these guys. But DBU officially back for LSU. Well,
A little bit, man, especially with some of the guys they have kind of waiting in the wings. And, never really seen this. No, yeah, we have. The two guys that came out kind of around COVID when LSU's defense was kind of rough. But yeah, it's actually kind of a badge of honor when your defense struggles a little bit the way that LSU's did. They were pretty solid top to bottom defense, but playing that blitzing style, getting burned by mobile quarterbacks the way that they did. And yet the entire time there was just this island over there on one side of the field. So I feel like if you're a GM, that's the best you can feel about a scheme. A lot of these Ohio State guys are going to be asking the question, okay, this team is so talented. They're playing like inferior competition. LSU played down to its competition, except for Mansour Delane, who was just out there locking it down.
pretty smart move to go from Virginia Tech to LSU. Turns out, and it was cool to see his parents kind of talk about that, like how he went to all these other places where it didn't really feel like they were going to help him meet his goals, and you spend 1 year at a place like LSU, and you end up being a top 10 pick, and you end up being the first SEC player off the board, which I think we said some very nice things about Mansour Lane last offseason. Don't think I would have quite gone with that projection, but hope that he has just an awesome career ahead because that dude was fun to watch at LSU. And then Will, I knew this was going to happen. I got pretty mad about it. I got mad during the draft, but I couldn't stop myself. Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain not being top 10 picks is just so dumb. Like, I felt watching this the same way I did Brock Bowers a couple years ago, where I'm like, oh, Brock Bowers is going to fall into the top 10. I'm going to listen to people tell me about, well, positional value and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this is the best tight end in the history of college football. Like, stick him on the field and watch good things happen. Caleb Downs ends up going 11th to the Cowboys, and it felt like the first actual flashy Cowboys draft pick that you've seen in forever. But if you explain to someone who watches football, Like, just if maybe the only thing they watched was the college football playoff, or like they just were someone who picked up college football this past year, and you just had them sit down and like watch all like just the power conference teams or whatever, if you want to just focus on that. Be like, hey, so Caleb Downs, he's gonna end up being the fourth player on his own team drafted. And then Ruben Bain, you know that guy, he's not even gonna be a top 15 pick. Um, just yeah, that's just the way that the NFL works, because short arms and positional value are the things that matter the most. I hated it. Couldn't stand it.
I mean, that feels like a good Cowboys pick, a guy that just feels a natural fit with the star on the helmet. Kind of interesting that Miami ended up with our guy Caden Proctor after that, which is like
Oh yeah.
almost a really smart move.
Okay.
Love.
So
Go ahead.
okay. Earlier I told you this before. I did an hour on the next round with Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown, resident Dolphins fan. I said, he asked me the question, who would be like the player that you just would not be excited about if the Bears took a 25? I said Caden Proctor. And we started talking about him. I'm like, be honest. Like, how confident would you feel if they drafted him to be like an anchor at tackle, left or right tackle? And it's like, and then, of course, he goes to the Dolphins at 12. And I texted Ryan immediately. Probably not good when the initial video for a guy with weight issues is about his nickname of Crispy because he goes to get Krispy Kreme donuts all the time. Probably not ideal, but look, everybody talks about the measurables with Caden Proctor. I'm out. Like, I'm out. Not a fan. Hope he does well. Seems like a nice kid. Was glad my team didn't take him.
It's like the Star Wars meme where there's like the girls like looking at him and it's like, hey, guess what? We traded down, we baited a team into taking a safety, and we drafted a tackle. It's like, okay, but the safety was Caleb Downs and the tackle was Caden Proctor. It's like one of those things that just, again, positional value just doesn't matter. Good players are better than bad players, and it's kind of interesting again to see like. And again, like task failed successfully 9 times out of 10. That seems like a good move, but in this specific case, it's like you maybe would have rather just stay there and take Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs and Caden Proctor being one pick apart, going 11 and 12. I know very different positions, different team needs, and all that stuff. That's a tough one to ever explain. I just kind of think it will be. Yeah, we did, however, with the Caden Proctor, Ty Simpson run, the 12-13 run. 18 consecutive drafts that Bama has had a first rounder, 10 consecutive drafts with at least 2 Bama first rounders. I kind of question if that was going to come to an end this year, because I don't even know for sure that those 2 guys are going to be first round picks and they end up coming off the board in the first half of the first round. The pick that I wasn't crazy about for an SEC player who came off the board, Caleb Banks at 18 to the Vikings, was kind of one of like, that felt like a kind of a dart throw for a guy that's had durability issues, like has flashed real promise, but just kind of had a lost season this past year. Like, didn't even play 100 snaps. They were talking about on the broadcast, and like I just never really saw the consistency with him. Like, he was all over the mock drafts really, really early. Like, you could turn on the highlights and think he's the best player in the draft, and then you're kind of like, oh yeah, well, that's a very, very small sample size of him, but I don't know. That was one that to me, that was one of the only ones of the SEC picks in the first round outside of Proctor. I guess we're only talking about 7 guys, so that really narrowed it down. But that was one that I kind of came away from being like, oh, okay, all right, interesting direction for the Vikings to go.
Do you have any like specific thoughts about Caden Proctor versus Monroe Freeling? Do you feel like one of those players is better? I'm not an offensive line guy. I kind of leave that to Cole. But do you feel like you would have taken Freeling ahead of him?
I feel like I would have. It seemed like everybody was mocking Freeling to the Lions, and then he doesn't end up going to the Lions. He ends up going to the Panthers, but was someone that played a ton of football at Georgia, was really, really valuable for them. And or wait, did I mix up his starts? I might have mixed up the amount of starts that Freeling had. But like no, I think he did. He was a 3-year starter, I want to say, for Georgia. But might have moved positions or something like that. Double check me on that one. I might be. I want to get that cleaned up. But like, seems like he would fit very, very well alongside Penei Sewell, and would have been a really, really nice anchor at right tackle for the Lions. I'm thankful that he's not in the Bears division. That he ends up going to the Panthers, and then he's going to end up blocking for Bryce Young. But yeah, I would have rather had Freeling. I felt like he was kind of more of the like middle of the first round type guy.
Just quickly off of the Georgia site, 2023, he had 8 appearances, 0 starts. 2024, he had all 13 games, 4 starts. 2025, appeared in all 14 games, making 13 starts. So Georgia, some of the guys have been rotational and more so like kind of getting banged up and not being healthy. That's not this guy. If he wasn't starting, he was playing.
Right, yeah. I'm pretty sure that they said on the broadcast like that was definitely one of the positives. I don't know that we think of the Georgia offensive line the same way that we did in the first part of the decade, but no, I would have been more comfortable with Freeling over Proctor. I was bummed to see Casey Concepcion go to Cleveland. Happy that he was a first round pick. Like happy that he gets picked 24th overall. Get that man a quarterback next year. Please, Cleveland. One time.
Not to get too far of this, but have you seen the Joakim Noah Cleveland redemption documentary he's doing?
I have not seen this. All I've seen is Joakim Noah at the free throw line with LeBron. Wait, wasn't that it was Joakim Noah when he was at the free throw line, like talking about how much he hated Cleveland or something like that.
Yeah, he
said
had
in
a
the press
famous like
conference, too.
post-draft quote where he's like, "Nobody wants to go to Cleveland. Do you
Yeah.
think Cleveland's fun? You go on vacation in Cleveland? All-time diss." I don't want to just sit here and dump on Cleveland, but I think that's kind of the same way that you feel when one of your favorite players gets drafted there. It's like, oh, he's going to Cleveland? Okay, awesome. And they've had some successful years. That was kind of with Baker Mayfield. The post-Watson Browns have not been much to write home about.
I realize that there's no way Arch is going to end up in Cleveland. Archie will find a way out of it. Like they're not going to the Jets, not going to Cleveland or whatever. But like Dante Moore, can we get some Dante Moore for Casey Concepcion? Get that guy a quarterback. He deserves it.
Will, you ever played baseball, son?
Man, we'll see. How'd you feel about Jordan Tyson to the Saints at 8? Getting your boy Tyler Shuck another weapon.
Man, I got my Michael Thomas jersey on here because I feel like the Saints might actually have a number 1 wide receiver here. There's not super Chris Olave slander. Chris Olave, I feel like just is not my favorite type of receiver. I'm kind of biased. I grew up watching Marcus Colston, moved to Michael Thomas. I like these big-bodied receivers that just get moss on you, for lack of a better word. And I feel like what I've seen out of Tyson is that he's that guy who can be kind of the game changer. He can be a voice in the locker room. Seems like all the offensive players are reacting positively. And again, like Olave is a good to great player, but I think his best role is catching that deep ball. And whenever the full defense is focused on you, it's harder to do that. So I think they're going to complement each other really well. And man, it's crazy how much quarterback can change you, because I've gone from night and day. Tyler Shuck, 2-3 good receivers, a couple of weapons there. I'm fired up, man. I'm excited for the season.
Yeah, interesting that they would Jordan Tyson. I mean, like the only negative that you can really have on him is just the injuries that he endured the last 2 years. But like when he was on the field, man, he's been really fun, and the versatility is certainly going to be there. Interesting that Saints have like kind of 2 injury prone guys with Olave and all the concussions he's had. But hope he's in for a successful, healthy rookie season at least, because like the Saints are actually kind of fun to watch. And then Dylan Thieneman going to the Bears at 25, totally off my radar, admittedly, like going into the evening, just because everybody, I think literally every mock draft that I read had him going to the Vikings at 18. So I didn't even open myself up to the possibility of the Bears getting a safety. They lost a couple safeties. Nobody actually cares about this. They do have Kobe Bryant at safety now. No big deal. Different one. But I would have loved
hope.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen Cassius Howell in this spot. Mesidor had already been taken by that point, but man, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, Cassius Howell, not picked in the first round. Kind of crazy. I think like the guys who my like best available would definitely include Cassius Howell, but Jermod McCoy not being picked after the entire mock draft process up until like 3 days ago is all about like, hey, we know he tore the ACL in January, but like he tested well, he ran really well at the pro day, like he's going to be fine. There must be something there. There must be like real smoke into like he needs another surgery. He's not going to be able to play this year, and there was like some sort of setback or something, because that's way too weird. Like I talked about him on the last pod. Is like if he goes in the top 10, I'm not necessarily going to be surprised. I wouldn't bet the house on it, but thought that was still very much on the table for him. So surprised to see Jermod McCoy not taken there. And then R. Mason Thomas had some buzz late first round if there was going to be a rush of edge rushers. Is that the right way to say that? I don't know, it's late. Rush of edge
A rush of
rushers?
edges.
Rush of edges? Yeah. But we know our Mason Thomas is an absolute stud and would have been nice to see him go in the first round. But those are the three guys that I was kind of like, dang, man, how did those guys not end up getting picked?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Give me the gentleman's name again that you said should have gone first round, first A&M D end. I know him. I
Cassius
just
Howell, SEC Defensive Player of the Year,
yeah,
the
yeah,
Bowling Green transfer
yeah, yeah, yeah.
who very famously had 3 consecutive sacks in a game earlier this year, which is just
Yes,
insane.
that's insane. Yeah, and got to know the player. Just lost his name for a second. That is one that gets very interesting again about positional availability or positional value, where it goes. This is a premium position. This guy had the production. He had the measurables. So pretty interesting. I'm a little bit less shocked by McCoy just because that's a position where that type of an injury really can hurt you. We've seen Nnamdi Asomugha's just never come back from an injury that's kind of similar. So I think, especially kind of with the situation that that defense as a whole is in, it wasn't like they were some awesome defense and they lost them and got worse. It was like they just never really. It was just kind of a gap year. So I could kind of see. I think it's just a second round pick. If it works out, everybody goes, oh, of course. But you don't want to be the guy that misses on it because the misses were obvious. Kind of similar to the Bam situation with off the field stuff where it goes, okay, well, if it doesn't work out, we know why. So some of this stuff is kind of protecting your livelihood. But then again, you get a running back taking a third and you go, all right.
Yeah, right. Make a prediction because I teased this. Well, I shouldn't say I teased this, but I talked about this the other day when you were at a bachelor party in Wyoming. Um, Make a prediction for the rest of the draft. Will the SEC's yearly draft streak continue? Going back to 2007, it's 19 consecutive years, trying to make it 20 consecutive years with having the most draft picks of any conference. Did not win the round one title. Will the SEC win the overall title in 2026?
Man, it's hard to say. Like I would honestly lean towards no. I know that there are a lot of like Texas guys on the board, but I think there are, and I know we're in like, several years deep into the USC, Oregon being in the Big Ten, but I think it's just a lot closer, and so that conference kind of recruiting a little bit better, adding more of those guys, adding some guys in the portal as well. I think with the Big Ten getting off to that start, I think the second round is going to be very SEC heavy,
I do
but I
too.
think kind of top to bottom it's not like, oh, you're waiting on Ohio State, Michigan, and a couple of other teams. It's like, no. Ohio State had like a very, very, very good draft, and there are several other teams that have lots of players waiting to be picked in the Big Ten. So head towards the Super Conference, Connor.
I'm gonna still say that the SEC ends up getting there just because of all the having a plus 30 advantage at the combine. I think will probably help out the SEC. Just in plus 30 compared to the Big Ten in terms of invites and stuff. But at this point, not going to surprise me. Just not going to. All right, let's get to some thoughts on Kalen DeBoer's new deal. Will, Kalen DeBoer, new deal, extension, raise. He is essentially on a new contract. That's basically what we found out on Wednesday. It now runs through the 2032 season, pays him an average of $12.5 million per year. He is now one of the 5 highest paid coaches in the sport behind only Kirby Smart, Kurt Cignetti, Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day. Your initial reaction to this was what?
Laughter, but for a specific reason, right? So go on this trip with my stepdad and stepbrother. They're both like Bama fans. My stepbrother is like a really big Bama fan. And like the whole way, we're talking, oh, would you rather have Lane? Would you rather have Debor? And he's like, well, I like the way Debor does things, but I'm really not sold. And if he has another average year, like people are going to be ready to kind of throw him out. And he's 20-8 at Alabama. And so spent the whole weekend, 5 days talking about he's kind of mid. We need really a great season, like a really good season to feel sold. And then as soon as we get home, boop, extended 7-year contract, lifetime contract for Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I don't think he's mid. People who listen to the show know that I think that. Maybe people think he's mid. That's fine. This is, you're right. This is the type of announcement that I think if you were of the belief that things were going south for him, you probably weren't paying attention to some of the other dynamics that have gone into his time at Alabama. And one of them being that Bama announced this on the same day that it did so for these assistants, and Nate Oates gets this new deal and he's getting a raise. And it comes on the heels of the speculation that we saw in December about potentially leaving for the Michigan job or the Penn State job. Like that was the Jimmy Sexton thing that, the Kalen DeBoer thing that was out there. And yeah, it was Jimmy Sexton. Let's just call it what it is. Like this was a Jimmy Sexton masterclass once again. And the poach fee for one of those schools, if they want to get Kalen DeBoer, is now at $10 million. It'll drop $2 million each year. So it'll be like $8 million next year. You get it. As I always say, you either get extended or you get fired in the SEC. Will, do I need to tell people the stat again?
Go ahead.
I don't say this lightly because eventually it's going to end. Okay. So I don't want to be so dismissive of this, but it's just not something that people talk about enough. Lane Kiffin, guy that, has made some headways. I think we can say when he leaves Tennessee to go to USC, that was 16 years ago that we're talking about now. Since he did that, the only coach to leave the SEC for a job out of the conference willingly, not getting fired and picking up another job. No. Willingly leaving the SEC for another conference. James Franklin going from Vandy to Penn State. That's it. Okay. So Kalen DeBoer, leaving Alabama and going to Michigan or going to Penn State. Wasn't going to happen. I do think that this was a deal that was sending a loud message to the rest of the world, because I think you look at these buyout numbers now and you go, they're not firing him. They're not. The Next Round posted these numbers. Shout out The Next Round as always. If you want to fire Kalen DeBoer at the end of the 2026 season, as you said, what if he's mid this year? What if all of a sudden it's like 8-4 and Bama is going in the wrong direction and feels very removed from the Nick Saban era? Okay, not saying that can happen, but to do so, $67.5 million. Jimbo Fisher money. No offset, by the way. No offset whatsoever. That's money he is getting. After 2027, you want to do that, $56.25 million. After 2028, $45 million. After 2029, $33.75 million. And after 2030, $22.5 million. If you want to say, Kalen DeBoer, see ya, you're out of here. That's 90%. That's what he gets, 90% of the remaining money on that contract. Not to quote Diddy, Will. Pause. He ain't going nowhere. Okay. He's not. And why? That's the question I think people are wondering, right? Like that, your stepbrother probably wondering the same thing. Why do this now? Why extend him at a time like this? Why do a new deal for a coach who's lost 4 games in each of his first 2 seasons at this premier job? Greg Byrne. Those are the 3 reasons. Jimmy Sexton, 4 reasons.
Greg Byrne, Jimmy Sexton.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Greg Byrne wants this to work. He needs this to work. His legacy will be defined by whether or not this works, because he is the replacement for the greatest coach in the history of college football. He knows what the market is too. That's the other thing. If you're saying Greg Byrne, he has no idea what's out there. You think he does because he tested the waters a couple of years ago. And I'm sure if you gave him some truth serum, when all of the Kalen DeBoer, is he going to leave for Michigan? Is he going to leave for Penn State talk came out? I'm sure he looked at the market once again. And maybe he even looked over there at Auburn and looked at all these different schools that are hiring and go, is that better than what we got? Because I don't think it is. And if you tell me Cignetti is better than what you got, okay, sure. The timing of that would never make sense ever. I truly think that he was able to look at the market and go, I feel really good about this. And I want others to feel good about this. And I want others to want this to work. And I want others to know that we want this to work. Will we know the shortcomings? What are the shortcomings so far of Kalen DeBoer and his 2 years at Alabama?
Running the dang ball, Connor.
Man, it's bad. It's bad. Nobody's denying that. Not mentally strong enough. Not physically strong enough. You can say all that. I think that's fair. Okay. I defend DeBoer more than I don't, but I think all of those things are perfectly fair. I think that being more competitive in their losses is another thing as well. But he got to Atlanta in year 2 with a team that was 7-1 in conference play, and they beat 5 ranked foes this past year. Kalen DeBoer, since he became a power conference head coach in 2022, we're talking about a 4-year sample size. He's got 18 wins against AP top 25 teams. Kirby Smart's got 19. Ryan Day's got 13. Lane Kiffin's got 7. Wins against top 10 teams in those 4 years. Kalen DeBoer has 8. Kirby Smart has 11. Ryan Day has 10. Lane Kiffin has 4. I'm putting Lane Kiffin in that category because he's making Lane Kiffin money. All right. So he's part of that tier that you're going to see when you see all these breakdowns of the highest paid coaches in college football. By the way, if you look at the list of the 10 highest paid coaches in the sport, Kalen DeBoer's record against them in those 4 years, 8-2. 2 losses being the SEC championship against Kirby, Rose Bowl loss to Cignetti. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yes, 4 losses to unranked foes in that stretch. That's not ideal. Not ideal at a place in which I'm not sure if we've ever said this before, but Bama losing to an unranked team was just something that did not happen from the year of our Lord 2008 through the 2020 season up until they lost that game to A&M in 2021. Bama still went on to play for a national championship that year. It's also the most forgiving era ever when it comes to committing such an offense, such a sinful offense. And it doesn't mean that we're going to dismiss that. Doesn't mean that if Kalen DeBoer loses to an unranked team next year that we're just going to be like, oh yeah, no big deal. No, it is still a big deal. But losing a random game to a bad team or a middle of the pack team, that was never going to be a fireable offense for Kalen DeBoer replacing Nick Saban. Okay. This contract and this new deal, it felt like an acknowledgement of that. Greg Byrne is telling the world, guys, stop saying after every single loss that he is cooked. This is not Ron Zook replacing Steve Spurrier. This is someone who was poached from a national runner-up team to try and keep Alabama in the hunt. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to be better than it is at the vast majority of schools? Yes. As we saw with this last coaching carousel, it is so hard to poach quality coaches in this day and age. And if you say, well, why can't Bama just poach some up-and-comer? All right, fine. Go grab a coach from the American. See how it works out. 3 SEC teams did that this past year. And maybe
Bama's not going to coach for the American. That's where you lose me. That's not what they're going to do.
Exactly. So, look, and that's not to be disrespectful to the American, okay? It's not. But, like, if you're trying to say, well, it would be way cheaper to do that as opposed to Kalen DeBoer, tell me about the experience that those guys have against top 10 teams. Tell me all about their wins against AP top 25 foes. Okay? It's not there. It's not there. And I will say, if you don't think this is natty or bust now, you haven't been paying attention. This is very much a natty or bust tenure. That is what Kalen DeBoer signed up for at Alabama. He knows that. If he does not win a national championship, this era should be scrutinized more than praised. I think that is a very fair take on a job that has high standards, no doubt about it. But this new deal is far from a surprise if you've been paying attention to the Greg Byrne factor in all of this. And it's a reminder that the people who want this to work have far more power in this situation than the people who don't. Will, other thoughts on this?
I have a few on this. So you asked Kalen DeBoer at last year's SEC Media Days about the Alabama standard. And I think that this extension is telling about the Alabama standard, right?
It has changed. I agree.
Right. So I think that modern Alabama fans have a lot of stimuli they're looking at, which are very interesting. They've seen 2 former Bama assistants become the number 1 and number 2 coaches in some order at the top of the sport. Kirby Smart, Kirk Cignetti. They've also seen Nate Oates do what it takes to take what was formerly not a basketball school and put them firmly in championship contention. As I sit here today, I feel as though Nate Oates has put Alabama in a much better place to be a contender than Kalen DeBoer. And I think that is a part of the problem. I do see there's an arms race within college football. Don't get me wrong. I get the Jimmy Sexton part of it. But that being said, I think we could look over at Oklahoma, who was not in the SEC when they lost their head coach to a Big Ten school at USC. It's fair, but they are an SEC school.
Pac-12 at the time, but yeah.
Right. Big 12. But they lose.
No, USC was in the Pac-12.
Right, but Oklahoma was in the Big 12, so they don't count for the number you were
talking about. For losing. Yeah.
Yes.
I get what you're saying. Yep.
Right. So, but that being said, you see the coach movement and you see the PR that we've talked about with this, right? I think that from Greg Byrne's situation, he's very safe. He's built powers across multiple sports at Alabama. I think that the Alabama brand should look at itself a bit like Oklahoma did and say, hey, we can win here no matter what. I don't want to be leveraged by Jimmy Sexton, a position they were not in with Nick Saban, right? Because here's why I like the DeBoer hire at the time. Being the guy after the guy is very tough. If Debor didn't work out, which I'm not saying he's not working out, I'm just saying it's inconclusive, it was very easy to have not shaken the Saban coaching tree yet. Okay. You could go and say, hey, we tried someone from outside. Now we're going to go get whoever it may have been at that point. We're now changing reality, right? So maybe it would be Lane Kiffin. Maybe it'd be Steve Sarkisian. Maybe it'd be Kurt Cignetti. I don't know, but one of those guys. Okay. Now that you have extended him, you have committed to a proof of concept that is not yet solid. Something that I think Alabama is too big of a brand to do, to be honest with you. You've seen how it's worked at a place like, North Carolina or Kentucky in basketball when they've said, we're going to get the guy that we like and we're not going to, look at like kind of the outside noise. It hasn't gone great, right? And so I get it. The numbers are there for the wins, but I still am not sure that Debor has ingratiated himself to the people of Alabama. And you know me, we've talked about this forever. That's not because he's some Yankee from South Dakota. I don't think they're Yankees, but some dude from South Dakota. It's not because he doesn't get it in the SEC. The recruiting part of it was the big question I had, and he's passed that with flying colors. It is shocking to me. And I said this recently that the offensive side of the ball, not recruiting, not defense, has been kind of their issue here. But that being said, you allowed a coach that is top. What would you say, Kalen DeBoer is top 10?
I
Top
think
five?
right. I think between 5 and 10 is
Right.
probably where he'd fall right now.
So top 10, therefore not
I'd
top
put him in
five,
the
right?
top 10. Yeah.
So you have allowed a coach that is top 10 to leverage your brand in a way that, others, Lincoln Riley, tried to do at Oklahoma. And I think that puts you in an interesting spot because no matter what, it's a bit of a shotgun wedding when you look at the comps being, well, Jimmy Sexton knows he's getting these deals over here, so you got to commit to that right now. Like I said, at a place like Alabama, you should be able to say, we're going to shake this coaching tree and go get the next Kurt Cignetti. And so the only point that I make with that is that, okay, Cignetti goes from James Madison immediately at Indiana. He's 10-2. Kirby Smart, not the transfer portal era. Takes him a year to get it together. After 1 year, boom. Urban Meyer takes over for Ron Zook. Boom. We haven't seen the boom yet. And that's worrisome. Alabama has beaten good teams, but what Saban brought Alabama fans to expect, we're not expecting, like, not we, but as college football media members or whatever, we're not expecting perfection. No one expects that. But it's fierceness. It's running the ball.
Agreed.
It's you're scared to play Alabama, and consistency is what Nick Saban brought. Kirby Smart is consistent. Kurt Cignetti is consistent. Say what you will about Steve Sarkisian, he's been pretty consistent, And so that being said, I think that to commit to that without seeing that consistency is an error in process, even if other teams want him, even if he has beat the top 10 teams, because Alabama should be the prize, not a coach like Kalen DeBoer.
I don't know that Alabama is as bulletproof as some might think when it comes to hiring a head coach and floor for success. I think Marler actually would tell us both, buddy. I've experienced what it's like to not have the right guy in that job, and the floor is probably tougher to evaluate now as opposed to what it was 20 years ago in pre-Saban's. Like I won't say that that's a direct comp, but there are people that could not do that job. There are people that might be able to bring some talent in the door that would indeed be like, look, this is just not feasible. This is just not what I signed up for, and I'm not the right fit. And I'm not saying that DeBoer has checked all these boxes and that he's the perfect fit. I'm not even saying that this is like the best extension in the world. I'm just telling people like why this happened, because I think there are a lot of people scratching their head going, wait, but I thought people felt this way about him. And what if he didn't do this in year 3? And it's like, no. He has grace that I don't think that the average person understood. So what happens if you don't extend him? Because that's the question that people are asking. Like, what happens if you just let this thing run? A couple of things can happen for you. You always, for whatever reason in this day and age, at a power conference job, have that negotiation post year 3. Jimmy Sexton wasn't waiting for the end of year 3. He just wasn't going to. He wanted to know how Alabama felt about him from the jump. So if you're telling Jimmy Sexton no, and you're saying, I understand who you are. I understand how much pull you have in this industry. I understand that there's a very decent chance that the next coach that we hire, if we fire this guy, is going to be one of your clients and we're going to have to work with you. Jimmy Sexton wasn't letting it get to that point. So if you had said, we're going to hold firm, we're going to stand on our brand, we're going to stand on exactly who we are and say, this guy needs to show us that he's worthy of this. He needs to win us an SEC championship. He needs to get us to a national championship. If you stand and wait on all of those things, that's fine. There's still huge risk in that. And there just is. And I don't think that we can underestimate the spite. And I don't think that we can dismiss the floor. I think Greg Byrne understands that there is a floor at Alabama. We might not know exactly what that is right now. And Debor might be a floor raiser overall, maybe not within a game, because we've seen those games against unranked teams. I agree there. But I do think there was some risk there. And I'm not saying it's going to end up being a great contract. We're going to do the 10 worst contracts in college football. That will not make the cut this year. I'm not saying it won't next year or the year after that. But right now, where you are at and the message you're trying to send to the college football world, I at least can kind of wrap my head around it and get why both parties were able to settle on this.
Well, and I'll say this too. Alabama has one thing that everybody, I think, in college football envies. They have a cheat code that circumvents Jimmy Sexton. He's on their staff. That's Nick Saban, right? I
Certainly.
watched Nick Saban pick up Lane Kiffin like a baby kitten and drop him off at LSU and say, you should be here. And yes, sir, make it work. Let's figure it out. This is a guy who, his ex-wife that he's still with is a Florida legacy. He wanted, he came up like idolizing Steve Spurrier. He was happy at Ole Miss, called Nick Saban. Nick Saban said, LSU is a special place. You should be there. So tampering, legal tampering. They have a cheat code of legal tampering that Jimmy Sexton shouldn't be able to leverage them because nobody leverages Nick Saban. And so that's my my take on this is that, hey, if Nick Saban is happy with Kalen DeBoer and he thinks he's the second coming of himself, that is just fine with me. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think he thinks that.
But that floor at Alabama doesn't exist anymore because that was before, again, you could throw a rock and hit 3 great Saban assistants who all Nick Saban has to do and call up and be like, hey, I will make you bulletproof here. I will co-sign in a way that I exactly haven't done for DeBoer. He's co-signed, but not in the way that he would for even like a, Will Muschamp or somebody. Not saying that that's a good idea, but a Kurt Signetti, somebody that if Nick Saban walks out with him in the press conference says, this is my guy, don't you touch him, you now have the best job in college football. So I just want to say that, you're right about the Jimmy Sexton part of it, but they're behaving as if they don't have the cheat code, which they do, I think.
I'd love to know how much Nick Saban is going to involve himself in that. I don't know that he's going to be as involved.
He's on the payroll. He better be.
I know. Yeah, I mean, he is. But at the same time, Nick Saban's going to go live on his boat and live a great life, and get paid tens of millions of dollars in media and be just fine. And it's not going to matter if this guy's the coach, that guy's the coach, or whatever. Greg Byrne's job and legacy is defined by this. And so, that's, to me, it's still going to be – I'm not saying that Nick Saban is at the mercy of Greg Byrne or something like that, but it's ultimately going to be like, hey, you got to figure this out for you. You've got to figure out what your next course of action is. And Lord knows if this is a bad year 3 for Kalen DeBoer, we're going to be talking about this deal. We're going to be talking about the terms of it. There's no doubt about it. And at the same time, it is also very hard to look out at the open market and see all of these guys that would be able to do this job at the level that you think that they should do it at. That'd be my only point. So, all right. Well, let's go in a different direction, a very different direction. Let's kick it to Sam Popper. Very unique background in this sport with the things that he's done with personnel, where he's coming from, where he's going, but a really important one to understand in this era of college football. So a lot of good stuff with Sam, just questions about kind of his role and what it looks like to be kind of on the back end with being able to evaluate players and all that goes into this process. So here is Sam Popper. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Sam Popper, the new associate general manager at San Diego State. First of all, Sam, congratulations on the move. It's a noteworthy thing when people like Pete Nakos are tweeting about it, and people in college football who know what you do and your background. This is really significant. Explain kind of your process of going from your role at Michigan and being willing to take on this new opportunity at San Diego State.
Yeah, Conor, first of all, appreciate you having me on. It's awesome to kind of be able to talk about this stuff with you. And, the opportunity for me was so massive here. I mean, that's what kind of played a role in me taking this job. It's something new, it's something different. And I just felt like it was a great staff group of people here. And like, as I kind of just did more due diligence on, what this opportunity was, like it just got me really excited.
You're working alongside Caleb Davis. Usually, teams who have a 6-win improvement with a year two coach don't think, hey, you know what we need to do is improve our process for evaluating players. But, the context of San Diego's situation now of making this transition to the Pac-12, how much of your daily responsibilities are now with that in mind?
Ton. I mean, improving our processes is a huge thing. Collaboration with Caleb in terms of, how we're going to do things from the top down and construct a roster is a huge part of my day to day. And the funnest parts of the job right now, honestly, are being able to kind of sit in his office and it's like a huge whiteboard over here. And we're just bouncing ideas off each other, kind of filling the whole thing up and creating new things ideally to make us really good. So, it's fun. And to answer your other question, Connor, the idea of moving into the Pac-12, being able to expand, what we do from a personnel standpoint to fit kind of what this conference is becoming. So there's a lot of really good teams that are joining this conference from a lot of different backgrounds in college football, right? You have teams like Washington State and Oregon State that, were in the Pac-12 previously, competing with Washington and Oregon. Like, on one side, you got emerging teams. Texas State's really good. And then obviously us, Boise State, there's a lot of really good organizations within, this new conference. So I appreciate the investment of the university from wanting to add something to the Aztecs so that, we can have a leg up hopefully on our competition.
Yeah, complacency and avoiding it is a very difficult thing in college football, and being able to take those two
Absolutely.
steps, it is huge. I kind of hate assuming what, like, there are a lot of people I think that assume that in college football or just big time college sports in general that a really nice place to live recruits itself. Like, I don't think that's the case, or that living in a small college town makes it impossible to recruit, because like if that were the case, we would just all see it with the results all the time. Tell me where you stand on this, given your situation now that you are in a very ideal place to live in the country. I actually think with how transactional player acquisition has become, we're more removed from that take than ever, because you get some of these 22-year-olds on campus and they don't want to do anything but talk ball. Like they don't want to go down to the beach. They don't want to see like, oh, what are the nice local attractions and stuff. Like it's better to talk ball with the backdrop of San Diego, obviously, but it just feels like it's such a small part of the process.
Yeah. So, I mean, different players are going to be motivated by different factors. I mean, I think that's always been a thing. And for us, right, it's a double-edged sword, right? The positive part of it is San Diego, as you mentioned. It's really easy for us to be a place that, players naturally want to live. And one of the things I've been really surprised about just from getting here is how often, in the high school recruiting process, guys from, Texas and guys from the Midwest and guys from the East Coast and even guys from the Southeast are like just want to come and visit just to see the place, right? So it's a positive from that aspect. But then the other side to it is we need to make sure that, the players that we're bringing into the organization, right, are they buying what we're selling? And we want to get players that want to help us win football games and are going to do everything at an elite level, which if the weather is your top reason for wanting to come to a place, right, you're probably not going to make those sacrifices to do that, right? So you can use it as an advantage in the recruiting process, but you really have to make sure that, are these guys really attracted to the main points of what the experience is going to be here? And that's the thing we have to match up. The weather puts us in the place that is San Diego, puts us in a spot to sometimes get to that conversation, maybe quicker than a place that's less desirable to live. But we just have to make sure that conversation fits. So you just like everything in recruiting, you try to take the positives, without making it absorb kind of why a kid's choosing to come play for you.
Take our audience kind of through your process, and I'll give you a hypothetical, and you can go whatever direction you want with this. But like, let's say hypothetically speaking, you get like there's a former four-star defensive tackle from USC. He hasn't played much the last, or I guess his first 2 years at USC, and he's like, I'm hitting the portal, and you have a job obviously to always know kind of what's out there, what do we need from our roster standpoint, what can this player do, how could he help us, would he get his timeline, all those different things. Where would you go with that evaluation process? Like, kind of take us through that process at San Diego State now to be able to make those decisions and decide, like, hey, is that going to be a guy who could realistically be on our roster next year?
Yeah, so that's all the stuff that I love doing, and a lot of kind of the new processes that we're putting in here. I mean, I think of the recruiting process, whether it's high school, college, junior college, right, from a point blank standpoint of, your first step is evaluation, right? Organization, pre and post eval, right? Where are we finding these guys, right? How do we ID them? How do we eval them? How do we organize them pre or post, right? Then you have communication and following the progression, right? You're gathering information throughout the course of the recruitment. You're trying to put yourself in a stronghold position for the player and letting them know how much you want them and where you see them fitting within your place. And then part three is closing the deal, right? That's on campus, that's in-person interaction. Obviously, the financial piece is a part of this too, but really you talk about kind of a scenario like that, it's always kind of a case by case basis as to whether you're going to go for the 4-star player that was recruited at an elite level and has those traits at a high school, or if there's a guy that's maybe extremely under recruited playing extremely productive at maybe the FCS level, but there's a reason why they were recruited at that level to begin with. Like, you're going to fall in different, with different perspectives. And our job is to try to build out a strategy that if we're identifying correctly, organizing, then evaluating and running through the process like we should, we're going to end up with the right guys. And we're not tied to a specific strategy way of bringing guys in, et cetera. Because, there's guys that are going to work on our team that can come from all walks of life, all different types of programs, and all different types of acquisition strategies. But if our process is right and we're putting that above the results, usually we're going to find success from a bunch of different ways compared to being a team that solely relies on one strategy of player acquisition.
When the portal window opens, how much do you hit refresh?
Zero. It's like you're talking about mentally or like the physical
The,
button.
the physical button of hitting refresh, be like,
Uh,
this guy enter the portal.
all the time. I'll tell you what, like there's nothing like it. It is like you know what it is? It's like that's why I describe it to people. You are at the top of the roller coaster. You can't quite see where it's going below, but it's going to be something that's kind of exhilarating and potentially uncomfortable. And you're just waiting for the time to go where you just dive knee deep in it. And that's what the portal is. Every time you click refresh, you have no idea how it's going to go. You have no idea who's going to be in there. You have no idea how the process is going to go or what's going to take you there. And that's the really good part, in my opinion, about there being one portal window now as opposed to two, is that it's rewarding the teams, I think, that are a little bit more process oriented rather than reactionary, because this is the one shot you get now. Obviously every team's going through it where you get into spring ball and you're thinking, ooh, it would have been nice to have an extra ad here. I don't know if we really needed this one ad over there, but now you don't have the time to correct those mistakes. So you have to be diligent on the front end and you have to really know what you want. It's truly, honestly, Connor, it's a crazy time. It's crazy the way it works. It's exhilarating, but in the form of college football, the way it works now with all the player transaction, like I think that the way the portal works probably suits the best department and is probably the best way at the college level for players to move across teams.
Yeah, because you can't be chaotic. Like if you're just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this happened, then you drop everything, and then oh by the way, like this other guy who probably is a better fit for your roster, like he actually entered the portal, then you're kind of already late on him. Like that part's got to suck.
So like I know it could kind of sound corny talking about like process oriented or like coach speak or whatever, but kind of here's like an example where I mean by that. So let's talk about your guy, right? The 4-star defensive tackle who's at USC.
Stud.
And let's say for whatever reason it doesn't work for us in the process with that player, right? Let's say, for example, the financial agreement doesn't work out. Let's say the player's not entirely healthy. Let's say that, shoot, maybe the player's dad just is telling him, yo, you're not going to go there. You're going to go to school X, right? There's a ton of reasons why maybe it doesn't work. From that point, okay, well, where do you pivot, right? I call it falling down the stairs when you are in the midst for player A, and then that doesn't work, and now you're kind of late for player B, and then now you're going to ducktail for player C, right? When do you just jump down 4 stairs and catch the ball when it comes falling to you rather than continuously chasing it, right? Like those are the things that make the portal so difficult. Is it's less so the first option, but it's more so, okay, what happens when a little adversity hits and things are moving at a million miles an hour? How do you pivot? And then there's, of course, that constant worry that, okay, well, if A, B, and C doesn't work, now what happens, right? And as the personnel department, you've got to be the calm, steady operating force in the building because everybody from a coaching staff, support staff standpoint, even some of those players on the roster, everybody's looking at you as to what's coming next. And so if you're a little bit uneasy, it creates a lot of uneasiness in the building. It's almost kind of a way of, almost kind of like the, head coach in the third quarter of a conference game. If you're down when you think you should be ahead and you get a bad call and things of that nature, everyone will naturally kind of look towards the head coach. And this process obviously is all about the head coach. I'm not trying to say that that's our role here, but we're the person in the building that everybody's looking at in that sense. So we've got to be calm and know going in, okay, if X happens, Y, if Y happens, X, and if Z happens, this is the route that we kind of want to go. So if you're prepared and your process is strong, you're always going to have kind of ways of pivoting that it may not be exactly how you wanted to get there, but you're just pushing closer and closer to your end goal. And again, when that's not figured out before the portal window, you got no time to waste once bullets are flying.
Over under 3.5 hours of sleep you get per night when the portal window is open.
Oh, 3.5 is like genuinely a good night. I mean, especially with how it worked. Obviously, this was the first one in the in the winter, and obviously everybody was kind of doing this for the first time from a personnel standpoint. But it's really funny. So I would get home. I would get home at about, I don't know, 2:30 in the morning. And my girlfriend, she'd wake up when I come in the house, and we would just talk about today for maybe 15, 20 minutes right before you go to bed, and attack it again. And what I would love to do with her is I would pull up my phone and I would just show her like the call, log, and I would just scroll down. And I would just keep scrolling and scrolling. And she was like, "Oh, what time is it?" And I'd look and say about 12:30. And she'd just be shell shocked. And that's when it really hits you. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like totally different because you're not really thinking that in the moment, right? You're just rolling. And from us, it's just something that we prepared for. And again, it's like the roller coaster. You don't quite know how it's going to go, but you've committed to it, right? At that point, when you're on the top of it, you are along for the ride, no matter where that thing's taking you. Um, so yeah, it's really different. Truthfully, probably about 2:30, 3 hours a night. You're kind of getting home around 2:30, or getting in there at about 5:30, starting it anew. And I know there were a couple people that would bring blankets in the office and all that. And truthfully, that's not me. I'd rather take the 15 minutes to decompress and drive home. But it's a huge challenge for everybody. But I think that if you really love this stuff, it's hard not to find it like fun when you're in the moment and you're rocking and rolling.
So you're right. I mean, you're only doing this if you love it. Can you tell our audience kind of how you got started in this field? Like, what was your moment of, I want to do this, I want to get on the personnel side, I think I have a real future in this, and then how you went about those steps and what you're able to do at Michigan as well.
Yeah, of course. So I started as a student intern. I wanted to play D2 or D3 football. My parents were not as enthusiastic about me playing D2 or D3 football. I went as a normal student and wanted to get involved in something. And there was a Team Blue program started by a gentleman named John Rocci, who was Coach Harbaugh's DFO. It was his first season back, and they wanted to get students involved in every department you could imagine, from equipment to facilities to video to athletic training. If it's a department in football, you name it, they were looking for students. So I applied for the coaching side because I didn't really know anything else. I didn't really know recruiting existed, in that nature. When we ended up getting past a couple Skype interviews, right, for all the kids, that's before Zoom, right? There was this thing called Skype, did the same thing before COVID, right? Hit a couple of those, then we get on campus and we were told that the coaching internship, they weren't looking for interns anymore for that. So for the in-person interviews that we had, quite made it for, right? You could do one of two things. You could either see you later, and when we're looking for new interns, you'll be guaranteed an in-person interview, or B, you could move horizontally into another department. So I went up to Mr. Rocci after the meeting and I asked him, what do you think is the closest thing? And he said, probably personnel. So I said, okay, I'll do that, kind of blindly. Didn't really know what I was getting into. I interviewed with Chris Partridge, now Super Bowl champ with the Seattle Seahawks, right? And it was awesome kind of getting to work with him and learning from what I didn't realize yet was such a great group of people. I just remember I had plans to be a normal college kid in the summer, going back home, and I think I was going to work at sleepaway camp for 6 weeks. And we're kind of realizing in April and May, like, yeah, I called my mom. I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to stay here, and I feel like I just got to kind of keep doing this. And she was like, well, where are you going to stay? And I was kind of like, I don't know. And I spent the first summer like sleeping on couches and, kind of staying at different friends' houses, really just whatever I kind of needed to do on campus just to be able to kind of go back in the building. And that's the time where I kind of realized how, like, okay, if I'm going to do all this for something, I must actually kind of like it. And I kind of just kept rolling with it. So then when I graduated, we had a coaching analyst go be the head coach at Howard University and went with him to be a, director of recruiting at the FCS level at, 22 years old. I started my fourth day after I graduated college and, along with the ride we go.
Crazy. Okay, you're right. If you don't love this, you're not going to survive. Like it weeds you out. That one summer would have weeded you out of having to deal with the logistics of finding different couches to sleep on and do all this. And I'm sure you've had moments during this journey that you've been on in which you've been like, man, I'm looking around doing something that I don't think I could have predicted 12-year-old me would have known would have even existed. Like even as recently as 2018 to think of like the types of departments that are being built up, not just at places that I think people look at and they're like, oh, well, they spend a lot of money on NIL or whatever. No, no, no. This is everywhere right now. And it is kind of fascinating. Like how much has this business changed just in the last 4 or 5 years with the departments and the resources that have been put into it?
It's changed immensely. And I think it's a really unique balance, Connor, where obviously experience matters. And now, I started as an intern in 2015. You can count those years, you cannot count those years. I mean, in my mind, this could be season 11 for me doing this. So now I might be, who knows, one of the, old experienced people, right? But like whether you have that or not now, you can be really good at this if you're an innovator and you have new ideas and you're willing to think on your feet and you're courageous enough to professionally present new ideas because, this isn't like the NFL where, the general manager has a certain day to day because that's what general managers in the 1980s did, right? This is, to your point, it's totally different. I mean, I worked for Matt Dudek, who was college football's first general manager in 2017 at Arizona. And I would argue that even if Matt Dudek was on this pod, he would tell you that he wasn't doing the same role or anything close to what GMs do now. And and the way that departments have evolved to where, now you look at director of player personnel at 6 different schools and they all have 6 different jobs.
So
So the whole
true.
point is it's not the title anymore. It's what you're doing with that position. And from a department managerial standpoint, you have X amount of dollars for your department. How are you allocating that the exact same way as you would your roster, the exact same way as for a head coach, you would your coaching staff? So it's changed massively, and I think it really has rewarded people who are innovative in creating new ideas, and it has an experience I think works because it helps you get a sense of where the industry is going. That's where I try to lean on mine. However, what I am trying not to do, which I think has hurt a lot of people, is trying to say, oh, let's do this because this is how it's always been done. And to your point, because it's changing so much, that is the type of mindset I think that is hurting departments as we move forward.
What's the biggest misconception with a job like yours that you think maybe the casual college football fan has?
I would say that everything is this high stakes Hollywood movie style, agent negotiation to the max, uh, kind of, show or play, if that makes sense. I think sometimes the role that money plays in the construction of rosters is a little bit exaggerated. It certainly exists, and players are getting paid, and there's a lot of money invested into it, and reporters do a great job, like yourself, at like putting that out there, so that the normal fan could be like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know the school was investing that." However, the tenets of building a good team are still the tenets of building a good team. And teams that win are the ones that are going to invest steadily in not just the players on the team, but how those players are being used in their staff, in their facilities, how the players are being taken care of, what the culture and connection looks like within our roster, which is a huge point of emphasis that Coach Lewis has here. He talks about culture and connections all the time. So that those are the things that are always going to allow teams to win. And when you build a team and you are putting the roster together and you're recruiting players to join you, it's not as often as the fans think that a player's sitting there saying, oh, this school offered X. If you can get to X, I'm going to come be a part of your team. It's, hey, I'm going to join this team because the pay is competitive and because this team fits what I'm looking for in a college. Same reasons why they would pick a school back in 2015, 14 before this all existed. One thing when NFL agents, I was talking to a bunch of them. This would have been in 22, 23, when they were debating whether to get into this college NIL game as it was starting to boom and seeing if it was worth their time. And one of the things that a couple different agents said to me that I was surprised by, because I'm obviously learning this stuff for the first time too, is they said in the NFL, around 30 to 35% of players end up picking the team that gives them the highest financial offer. And as somebody who followed the NFL free agency from the outside, I would have thought that percentage was a lot more. But it just goes to the fact that those guys are looking for, where does my family want to live? Where do I have the best chance to win? Where does my fit look like? Right? Like, what organization has the stability to where, what this team's telling me now and people I'd work with will still be what they're telling me and the people I'd work with in 2 years, for example. College players are looking for the same thing, and agents have done a really good job for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, of helping these young professional athletes, right? Because that's what they are now, of having the right perspective to make these big decisions, so that internal biases that they have within their family aren't running athletes into maybe situations that aren't the best for them.
What was your biggest win at Michigan? Like what that you look back on, you're like, that was the guy that I'm like, I just knew. Like I saw him early. I was early on him, and he played a role for a championship winning team. He turned into XYZ. Or maybe it's a guy that you're like still holding on to stock to, and you're like, hey, maybe this guy this year in 2026 is getting ready to pop. Like, is there like a case like that stands out?
There's a couple different, these are always such fun questions because we have however long we have. I could talk forever about this stuff. I would say one that I'll say off the rip is, the linebacker position in the 2025 class. When I got there in 23, right, we were kind of midway through the 24 class and starting to put the 25 together. And we had brought in, from when I was at Memphis, some different processes in, really step one, kind of like I talked about earlier, the ID evaluation and organization pre and post eval conversation. And Chris Partridge was the linebackers coach at that time during the 23 season. And so for him and I, it was really nice being able to work together, because with all the other coaches on that staff, I was, taking some time to get to know him and start working with him. Whereas Coach Partridge was like, yo, let's go. I know you know the stuff. Just put it in. Give me the guys like, let's rock. So with him, it was really fun because it was kind of the testing ground for all the processes that we were implementing with all the other coaches, which really helped get that done a lot quicker with those guys. When Coach Elston, Coach Klingscale, and Coach Minter, saw how we were doing things at linebacker, super easy for them to fly through with it. But anyway, so we had, Chase Taylor and Nate Owusu Boateng as like the two guys that we kind of wanted really right from the rip. And at the time, Nathaniel was, the higher recruited player who had all the offers, and I just kind of moved from DeMatha to IMG, and Chase was got Stockbridge, Georgia, who was a really under recruited, who was kind of that, played a little bit of receiver, played a little bit of safety. It was kind of his first year playing linebacker his junior year, and we felt like the two of those guys together would be an awesome class. Two totally different styles of recruitment. Two huge evaluation points, right? Like two huge points of just alignment within the defensive staff. And why I love that one so much is obviously from a personnel standpoint, right? Selfishly, that team ends up, the whole defensive staff leaves, a new defensive staff comes in, right? The offensive coordinator ends up getting the job of head coach, which makes, from a recruiting standpoint, right, a lot tougher on the defensive players, right? Because they don't know the new head coach as much as the offensive players. Ended up changing coaches a couple times throughout that kind of first new staff. So it was a whole bunch of kind of turnover that the personnel department has to continue to kind of carry on. And Coach BJ did an awesome job at kind of finishing that group up. And, from my perspective now, looking at that team, I see all their fans like, oh, well, they didn't get the big money linebacker in the portal, and it's such a young room and it's unproven. But, both Nathaniel and Chase played a fair amount last year, and I expect them to be household names among, the Ann Arbor faithful this year. It just goes to show how really good high school recruiting can set you up for success. And so I take that position with a little bit of pride, just from kind of where it started to where it ended. Now I know those guys aren't as famous as they will be after this season, and what a great opportunity they both have to be awesome players there. And love both of them, love the families, and they both had great people around them, kind of helping them every step of the way. That I've obviously kept in touch with my entire time over there. So love those guys, and that's a fun story from that time.
I won't ask you to get into the awkward ending of the Tron Moore stuff and all that, but you did get to see like what the Kyle Whittingham operation was looking like. And everybody has said kind of adult in the room, but also there were like some Michigan fans initially going, "Oh, he's too old to do this," which is just insane after a 64-year-old head coach wins a national championship. Like, what did you see about him and the way that he was operating to make you think like they are adapting to the new world? They might have won the last national championship of like the old era of college football, but what about them has kind of ushered in this new way of thinking that's very much a part of what you do, day to day at San Diego State now?
Yeah, I enjoyed working with Coach Whittingham. I thought him and the staff they brought in were awesome. It was really good being able to kind of throw, different ideas at the wall with that group, and work with the coaches, and, try to operate in was a extremely hectic portal window with the coaching change and things like that. I thought those guys were really, really good. And, I think the people in Ann Arbor should be extremely excited for kind of what that staff can do and how that roster looks coming into this year. And I have a lot of friends over there from that new group. It was just one of those things, truthfully, kind of on my end, where it was talking with Coach Lewis over here. It was getting a sense of what him and Caleb kind of had, what they were looking to add to the department here, the really cool stuff that Caleb and I could accomplish together, the way that Coach Lewis manages, not only our coaching staff, but our personnel staff, and how he builds the team, and what he looks for. And it just made too much sense for me to not take this job. Uh, or wait, what was I say? Oh, it made too much sense
I
for
know what
me
you're
to
saying. Not
not
take
take
this
this
job.
job.
Yeah,
You get the point.
yeah.
That's why I'm doing this, and I'm not an English teacher. But that was kind of what went into it, just because he's so good, and it was just such a really exciting opportunity here.
What's been your most eye-opening experience so far? Doesn't have to be at your new gig, but just in general with this new era of college football, like the moment that kind of made you step back and go, "Oh, like this is different than like the college football that I grew up with."
There are some agents out there that you can tell aren't doing their, I don't know if you want to call them clients, but like aren't doing their clients the right way. Kind of seeing some of that from the outside uh, is not it's not fun sometimes, because at the end of the day our jobs here in personnel department is to, for the betterment of our team, and the betterment of the players that we have joining our team, the players that we have on our team. If there's a guy that doesn't end up, coming here, if there's a guy that kind of moves on his own way, it's a lot of times not much you can do about it. You got to focus on the guys that you do get. It's just hard sometimes when there's a player that's getting really bad advice, and you're not quite in a place to tell them, hey, by the way, like, just for you, please don't do this. I really try to sometimes, but there's sometimes in this role where you just can't do it. And some of the guys that are being, managed poorly is sometimes tough to watch.
Hey, Nico Yamaleava, you're getting really bad advice. This is not going to end up well. Like I mean, we're all collectively thinking that as that was happening right around this time last year. But yeah, you're right. Like the agent piece of it, it does seem like it's all over the place. And you've got too many people that have too much say at a point when these kids are at very vulnerable points. And that's got to be a difficult thing to manage, especially when it like you could be making the sell, but there's only so much you can say that doesn't sound like, well, of course you're going to say I'm not worth this money or that I can't get this in the open market.
And there are some really, really good ones, Connor, and also the number of kids that, are in that scenario, or it's not many, but, it's definitely some. And there's a lot of really, really good agents out there. The unfortunate part about this that I tell players all the time, whether we get them or not, is, you're getting paid now. You are a professional. It's on you to put the right people around you to make the good decisions for your career, the same way a professional in any sport should. We talk about college players. I kind of laugh a little bit when people, still refer to them as student athletes. They're technically students and athletes, but they're pros. I mean, the same way that if there's a soccer player that's, 17 years old and he's playing for a European football club, he's viewed just as much of a pro as a 22-year-old. There's no difference, in hockey, the players that get in the NHL at 18, they're pros. It's no different. And these families, and I try to help as much as I can, these families need to do a really good job at figuring out what is in an agency that I want. And there's a lot of really good resources out there to go make those decisions. But just it's hard to have success if you don't, take accountability in that part of things from the jump. Not after the first one, not after the first year, from the jump.
I'll get you out of here with this to tie it all back to the promotion that you just got to join that staff at San Diego State. What's your ultimate goal in this field? Is it NFL general manager? Do you have a Connor Stallions manifesto to become the head coach at Michigan? Like, what's like the job that you look at and go, yeah, if I got to that, like that would be the place that I would stop at.
It's funny, Connor. Like I always say, like I want to be a contributing member on a championship team.
Hmm.
Like that is, I don't want to kind of sound corny with it, but like everybody kind of has their dream jobs. And like, obviously I want to keep moving and I want to keep winning and things of that nature. But it just shows to show that in football, you never know where things are going to take you. Like I truthfully going into the offseason, I didn't think that like this position would be the one that was most enticing to me, that I would find the most excitement in. I remember talking to somebody in the beginning of kind of in January and saying, and him saying, the G6 level like might be a really good level for you. And I kind of remember saying like, yeah, no, I appreciate it. And he was kind of explaining why. And I remember kind of getting off the phone thing like, yeah, I don't really see that. And now here I am. You know what I'm saying? So I'm almost trying to just take it day by day, do the very best I can, and just see where things are going to go. And wherever I am, I just want to win. And again, like this group, Coach Lewis is awesome. We are our toes are not stepped on. Just in the very short time I've been here, there's already a couple new processes that we're starting to implement that I think are really going to help us, especially once we get into the end of the cycle where we're closing a class and we're gearing up for another exciting, fun portal window, right? And I think that my hope is that Aztec fans are going to see some benefits in our roster because of my hire. That's the goal, is to leave the place right better than you found it. At the end of the day, we're in a different position here. Like we have, a general manager and an associate general manager. I'm pretty sure we're the only team in our conference that has that structure. I'm pretty sure we're the only team in the G6 that has that structure. And that's really, in this world of college football, kind of, that's all you can ask, is have some sort of area where you're different than everybody else. And we have it. So like, I'm a competitor just like anybody else. Like if we don't take advantage of it, like that's a dagger to the heart. Like I'm determined for this to be something that works. And then ideally now other teams are just like kind of, everybody does, right? Looking at that structure saying, oh, we should probably do that because that worked at San Diego State.
You just got somebody who's sleeping on a couch over the summer, this like in Ann Arbor or something, or Madison or something like that. You just got them a future job by being able to.
Houses
to
aren't
do
that
it.
bad, man. There's some people out there that have nice futons and whatever you got to do to get the job done. Of
Yeah, whatever you got to do, man. Sam, really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck with everything that you guys
course.
got moving forward, man.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, Connor.
All right, well, let's close it out with an email that we got. Email us, theogkickoff@gmail.com. Email from our guy, Austin. This is going to go in a couple of different ways. So I brought this up for a very specific reason. And Austin, thank you so much for the kind words here. Let me read off this first part before I get to what I really want to talk about. He says, hey, dudes, first off, Connor, about a year and a half ago, I was laid off from my job, my first job in my new industry after career change. while my wife and I had our 6-month-old at home. It was super stressful and I had to fight like hell through it. But things are infinitely better now than they've ever been. All that to say, congrats on the layoff. I'm sure most days doesn't feel like it. And this is one of the most frustrating things to be told, but it's still true. I bet it's going to turn out for the better. It might just suck in the meantime. I'm glad you guys are still committed to making the podcast. Yes. Thank you very much. Couldn't agree more with that. On another note, I'm a UGA grad, and even though conference championships are going down the toilet, I still care about them as long as we keep winning. I'm also a software developer, and even though this will probably be obsolete in a couple of years, I built my own conference championship tiebreaker web app. I can give you a million caveats, tell you all the things that are in the pipeline, but I'll spare you and just say I love your feedback if you have a minute to play around with it. I played around with this, Austin. This is whoclinches.com. Okay. And I don't usually give like random shout outs like this. This is really cool. So what Austin has done, if you are a sicko like me, you can bookmark this because obviously games haven't happened yet. And you can basically pick a winner of every single game and forecast who would be playing in the conference championship. So if it's, tiebreaker and this team hasn't played this team, here's how this would actually break down. Austin has all of this and it gives you a full detailed explanation. You could literally simulate the entire season. I think I simulated the entire season with like all home teams winning. Did I do that? Maybe. I think it was Georgia and Mizzou playing an NFC championship, maybe. But really cool. And I played around with it, and it was a reminder of why I think the conference championship race matters and why I do think that is a coveted thing to be able to get to, especially in a 16-team conference in which bragging rights kind of matter. But yeah, this is pretty awesome. And I know we've talked about I think a few random people who have done stuff like this before. I think he's got other conferences involved for this too, not just the SEC. But Austin, you've done the Lord's work with this. And if you want to see the path for your team to win a conference champion or to get to a conference championship game, whoclinches.com, bookmark it. I have bookmarked it and I will be coming back to this. And I probably won't use it until at least week 6, but I'm going to be chomping at the bit to go ahead and use it. Will, do you have this pulled up right now?
Yes, I'm picking all the left teams currently. There's so many things that our brains could do with this. I have what happens if everyone who's listed on the left? Yeah, so let me hit this calculate button real quick. This is, first off, I don't know if there's a culture of UGA grad AI folks. This makes me feel like I'm cheating on our guy Perry because he's a UGA grad and an AI guy. They got to shout him out. But this is awesome, dude. It's so, even at times on the show, I'm like, well, what if this, then that? And we spend so much time thinking about this stuff. And yet there's still weird things and weird things that have happened in the SEC. We talked about Arkansas winning the West in 02, 03. So I just this is going to be so helpful. And thank you. And, we're not going to gatekeep this. We're going to get this out here. So this is a labor of love by him to the SEC sickos like us. And we really appreciate that, man.
Whoclinches.com. Love it. Love it. Good name too. Really, really good name. And if you're like me and want to actually feel like you have your finger on the pulse with some of these tiebreakers, because I'll admit there were points late last season where I was like, I'm not entirely sure who would get it under this scenario. This is just a good thing to be able to have in your back pocket. So thank you, Austin, for not only developing this, but being able to share it with us and for the very kind words. Times have definitely been better at different points. I was telling Will off camera, there's a project that I just finished that I'm not able to get into detail talking about, as a project within college football that I had just wrapped up. And so that was consuming a lot of my time over the course of the last 6-7 weeks. Be able to kind of have some of the details that I'll share at some point that'll trickle out this off season. But I've been staying busy, been very much staying busy, and life could be a whole lot worse. We're in a good spot right now and excited to be doing this with the pod. If you have not listened to all of our Just Meant More episodes and you're just kind of more of a casual listener, please go back and listen to those or download those, listen to them over the summer. I always say is you're boarding a flight or something like that, download one of those. I promise it'll make the time go by a lot faster. But yeah, we will take a break on those. That's kind of the plan for the summer. We will be going down to one pod a week. Not next week, but the week after that. So what is that, the first week of May, essentially? Yeah, the first, May is essentially one pod a week. So that'll be the new format. We'll kind of update everybody. I think we're going to have pods that are going to drop on Thursday morning. Will be how we will do things moving forward. All right. That'll do it. Please email.
Oh, and also really quick, guys, this is a new format. We have a new home. So if you guys have ideas, send them to us at DOG Kickoff. If you have any viewer choice stuff, we did Pitch Me last year, which was a new idea. So if you guys have any thoughts about how we could do some off-season content or previews or stuff like that, if you want to build an entire dashboard to really do anything with ice cream flavors, I'm that type of nerd. I really need to get my Warcraft DPS up. So please build me one of those. But anyway, yeah, just appreciate all the suggestions, y'all.
Segment ideas, email us, dogkickoff@gmail.com. We'd love to be able to hear from you. If there are things that you heard on the show that resonated with you, you want to share a personal story, please email us. We'd love to be able to hear from you. Leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to The Next Round on YouTube. That is where you can find all of our episodes. We are still putting up content on the OG Kickoff on YouTube as well. Follow us on IG, the OG Kickoff, and follow us on Twitter @CJOgura, @GoSoHard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.